All right, I got a Red Bull. White is always right. Oh, oh no. And some Stabish. Let's continue.
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
Really?
Correct.
You don't believe people can be clinically depressed?
Really?
I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real. I believe that the #1 power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy to hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods in my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffered from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have, that the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to damage me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can.
Right, and by the way, on that, I agree.
So we agree.
Right? My favorite speech is the Rocky Balboa one.
Okay, so then we agree. No, we do.
Here's where we don't agree.
Piers.
You don't, no, hang on. You've got to let me interject when I don't agree with you, right? Where I don't agree with you is that there's no such thing as clinical depression. There absolutely is.
Well,
it's a proven scientific medical reality. There's a different argument about have we gone a bit too soft, right, in schools and all the rest of it. Absolutely. Do I think some people moan and whine too much about their lot in life? Definitely.
Okay.
Are we a victimhood society? 100%.
Okay.
Is there such a thing as clinical depression? Absolutely.
So,
and my argument is that if you actually bracket everybody who's not clinically depressed and doesn't have the genuine medical condition, then actually if millions of people are deemed to have depression, the ones who really need the help don't get it. Well, that's my point.
Well, that I would agree with. You're right. I think it's certainly an overused term.
But you don't accept there is such a thing as clinical depression.
No, I don't.
And that to me is a damaging view.
Okay. Well, let me explain why. If someone comes to me and says I'm clinically depressed or I feel very, very sad, I would say the first thing you need to do is stop accepting the identity of a clinically depressed person. Stop accepting you have no control over this. And what you need to do is stop identifying that way, and let's work together to try and fight against it.
There isn't an eminent doctor in the world who would tell you there is no such thing as clinical depression. Who would not tell you that some people it's simply beyond their control.
Johann Hari wrote a book saying exactly that, my friend.
But he's not an eminent doctor.
No, but
he's a journalist.
I said depression wasn't real long ago and was attacked for it. Then Johann Hari wrote a book, which
What's it got to do with Johann Hari?
Because he wrote a book proving me right. Most people.
Johann Hari's a journalist.
Sure. And my point is that a lot of people who are clinically depressed are suffering with something in their life, and if you fix the problem in their life, perhaps they won't feel depressed anymore. That's not a disease.
Yeah, but Andrew,
that's situational.
Andrew,
go read the comments in this video right now. Go read the countless comments. That's all I'll say. Read the comments. You know, the clinical depression argument is a tricky one, and obviously I have, surprise to some, I don't have, any medical degrees to, back up any of this, but I know there recently was a study that kind of came out that that did question the, diagnosis of being clinically depressed. And here's the thing with it, all right? It's someone who's depressed can go to the doctors, all right? They can scan their brain. They could test their levels, and they'll pull up and say, all right, this person has an insufficient amount of fucking serotonin, whatever it may be, dopamines, blah blah blah. Okay, and they could, then they take the same person, the same depressed person, and they're depressed time and time again, and it's not subsiding, it's not getting any better. They remain depressed, and every time they take a look at them, they test their levels, and they're low on these chemicals. But that's not proving that they are incapable of regulating these chemicals properly. All right? Is it really that crazy to suggest that, if they could magically, I don't want to use the term magically, but if they could be convinced, that they weren't depressed, if they could be convinced that there's something to be happy about, are you going to tell me that their brain is actually incapable of producing those chemicals to make them happy, to make them feel better? Or is it just that they're just stuck in this vicious cycle where they're just constantly depleting themselves of all these chemicals because of their mindset? I think that's something to think about for sure. I think that's I think there's, and regardless if that's right or wrong, I think him suggesting to people that clinical depression is real, I don't think that that's doing any harm to anyone. All right, anyone who's even if someone is legitimately clinically depressed, and Andrew Tate is suggesting that that's not a real thing. All right, there's nothing stopping that clinically depressed person from talking to a doctor and still getting that diagnosis and that medicine that may help them. There's nothing stopping it. Why is what he's saying being harmful? The only thing that's going to come from it, it's not like I cannot imagine someone who's clinically depressed is going to say, well, Andrew Tate said it's not real, so let me go fucking kill myself. That doesn't make any fucking sense. All right? So if that's not the case, that's not going to happen, then what else is going to come of this? Either they're going to remain clinically depressed, go to a doctor, get treatment from a doctor, or they're going to adopt this thought process. They're going to adopt what he's saying and maybe see some fucking improvement. To suggest that this is dangerous, what he's suggesting would cause more problems, is fucking ridiculous.
Simply wrong.
If that's what you believe, Piers,
That's what I believe.
I don't believe in things that take power away.
There is not an eminent doctor in the world
Piers,
that would agree with it.
Piers,
do you think you know more than doctors?
I can't become clinically depressed.
Why do you know?
Because I don't believe in it. I can't be haunted by a ghost if I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, that's like saying I'm never going to die because I don't believe in it. It's ridiculous.
Perhaps, but if it allows me to live a life where I feel happy and
But here's
content
where you
within
see,
myself.
this is that little area where you lose me.
No, I don't lose you.
You are,
because
but somebody with your following says
the
there is no
thousands
such
of people,
thing.
the thousands of people who have emailed me saying my doctor told me I was clinically depressed and it's a disease that I have got in my brain and I can't be fixed. And I started listening to you and I realized that that's not the case and I can fix my own life and you're the only person who has ever helped me.
Oh, Andrew.
Thousands of people have emailed me that exact email.
If you think you
Read the comments in this video. Read all the comments in this video. Tell me what people are saying. All right? I don't think Andrew Tate is the Lord and fucking Savior of everyone. I think that he's just, the way he delivers his message really gives people encouragement and the belief that they need. For some people, it can genuinely fucking help. Read the comments. I implore you to go read the comments and tell me, are these all just lying, narcissistic fucking people who are just so obsessed with Andrew Tate that they're going to just make up all these stories just to push his narrative? I find that very, very unlikely. Go read all the comments.
you are single-handedly curing people of clinical depression. You are living in cloud cuckoo land.
I am reading the emails of people who I have cured of clinical depression.
You're reading emails from people who have believed you when you say there isn't such a thing, and they've probably never been diagnosed clinically depressed. They just want to go along with what Andrew Tate says.
I don't think so.
I think your view of that is dangerous.
I respect that you think my view is dangerous, and I respect you have the right to view that, to think that. I think that clinical depression, I actually agree with you, is massively overdiagnosed. I've already said that PTSD is a very real thing. I've already said...
hang on.
Okay.
Again, you're misquoting me. I did not say clinical depression is massively overdiagnosed. I said that people who claim to be depressed but don't have clinical depression, I think that is massively overblown, right? In other words, there are a lot of people who just have a bad day and declare, I've got depression.
Yeah.
And I say, well, have you been to a doctor? Have you been clinically diagnosed? If you have, and you have clinical depression, that's one thing. But if you haven't, we could probably work on some mental strength and resilience skills with you. But a clinically depressed person has an absolutely proven medical condition that is beyond their control.
Not according to me and many others, my friend.
Well, look, what do you know about it, honestly?
I know.
You're not a doctor, are you? Not trained, are you?
I'm not a doctor.
You're not a psychiatrist. You're none of those things.
Sure.
You're a guy on the make. He's done very well for himself, spouting stuff off, much of which I agree with, as you've seen in the interview, but some of which is ludicrous, and that's one of them.
It's not ludicrous.
It is.
It's not.
If you said to me, we're in a victimhood society, it's got to stop, I'm with you.
Okay.
But the moment you try and deny clinical depression...
I believe feeling depressed is real. I do not believe it's a disease that you catch from the sky and you cannot affect. I believe that no matter what happens, I believe you have control of your own mind and you can fight against it. I believe if you change your circumstances in your life, you may feel different. I'll give you a quick example. I had a guy who emailed me saying he was clinically depressed and he was going to kill himself. I obviously am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor. I told him, because I replied to my emails. I said, have you been to a psychiatrist? He said, yes, I'm clinically depressed. I've been on these pills, this amount of time. I'm on antidepressants, it doesn't work. I said, I don't know what to say to you besides this. And he said he lost his girlfriend, that's why he became clinically depressed. I said, listen, go to the gym, get a six-pack first. Once you've got a six-pack, email me again. If you still feel like killing yourself, I don't know what else to say to you. I'd say strong body is a strong mind, go train. He went, he started sending me progress pictures, emailing me him getting in better shape, and eventually got a six-pack. He's now a professional bodybuilder. And he said, I can't believe I was considering that. I feel so much better, etc. The doctor was telling him he was clinically depressed and couldn't cure it. He started taking control of his own life, and now he felt better. Now, I'm not saying it's the case for everybody.
No.
I'm just saying.
Here's my question, though. Have you seen the guy's medical records?
Of course not. I just told you the
So
story.
you're just taking his word for it?
Oh, I am taking the word of a man who emailed me with a bunch of medication in specific
You're
doses.
denying proven science because one guy writes to you who you help and you've not seen any evidence he ever had clinical depression diagnosed.
I'm denying the idea that.
And on the back of it, you go on your rants in public to tens of millions of people denying something because this guy writes to you and says he had it and you cured it. And I think that's a dangerous mindset, Andrew.
That's fine.
And that's where you don't have a responsible view.
There is absolutely no danger that is going to come from someone suggesting that clinical depression is not real. All right? If you tell someone that they're clinically depressed, someone who believes they're clinically depressed, if you tell them that you do not believe that they can change their depression, that they can fix their depression, and it's not a permanent diagnosis, all right? They're not going to just go and fucking off themselves, all right? They'll either choose not to believe you, continue on with their routine, whatever the doctor's going to suggest, or they will try whatever it is you're suggesting and maybe get some improvement, or get no improvement and go back to the fucking doctor. But to suggest that there's danger, that suggesting that clinical depression is not a real thing will make things worse is fucking ridiculous.
Of your influence over
Disagree. It's very responsible because I'm saving people's lives. I disagree that if you feel depressed, I disagree that you cannot affect it and change your life and take control and fix yourself and feel happier. I disagree with that.
Do you think?
I refuse to accept that there are people out there who cannot become happy, contented individuals. I refuse to accept we live in a world where God has created people who, no matter how hard they work and how good their life becomes, can't be happy. I don't accept that. I accept that the universe is a very giving place and that God loves all of us. And if you try your best and you work hard, you can become a better person. And I also will argue with you, and I'll counter the point, that you sitting here on your platform telling people they have clinical depression, there's nothing they can do about it, is far more dangerous.
That.
Okay, well then, if they have clinical depression...
Why do you misquote me?
No, because you're saying...
You hate being misquoted.
No, you're saying if people have clinical depression,
I never said there's nothing to do about it. They go to a doctor and they get diagnosed and they get help.
Then I would argue the point that if
it's the complete opposite of what you just said I said.
I would argue the point that if somebody has depression of any kind, whether it's clinical, whether it exists or not, whether they feel depressed or not, whatever, that taking control of their life, taking personal responsibility, and working hard is always going to be the positive, best thing they can possibly do for their life going forward.
How positive
and the people
is
going around
it?
them. So sitting here saying, I don't believe in clinical depression, you don't believe in depression. No, I don't. I believe that people can take control and fight against things.
Right.
I believe in personal sovereignty.
Right. Fine.
Good. So we agree.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Piers, you're on my side. You're afraid of being canceled along with me.
As I said to you from the start,
that's all
I agree with a lot of what you say.
Completely. So
but I'm taking you to task over the stuff I don't agree with.
Sure.
And I'm just not sure you understand why it's wrong, which is in itself quite revealing. Let me talk to you about Alex. Let me talk to you about Alex Jones, right? Who I have a bit of history with. He tried to get me deported from the United States.
Did he?
Yeah.
Rightfully
what is
so.
your view of Alex Jones?
I think that Alex Jones is a sovereign individual who, very much like the rabid left, deserves a chance to speak on his points of view. I think that the truth on issues is usually somewhere in the middle between two extremes. And
So you think Sandy Hook was staged?
I don't know anything about Sandy Hook.
Well,
You know he's just been sued by the family.
you just have to pull that out. You have to
don't know
dangle
about
that and let me see if I can
support
get him
in
to
public?
bite.
You know nothing about the most infamous
When
thing
have I
attached to
supported
it.
him in public?
You have supported him in public.
I've been on his podcast.
Yeah, but you said nice things about him.
I say nice things about lots of people.
What do you think of Alex Jones?
I said nice things about you, Piers.
That's fine. So you should. I'm a nice person.
So to sit and say that I've been on a podcast and I say nice things about
But
him
you
means
said
I
you support his right to speak about things like Sandy Hook.
I don't know Sandy Hook. I don't know. And
You know what it was
it was a mass shooting.
of school children.
Okay, but to sit and
he,
it's actually no. Let's stop for a second. Please don't interrupt me. Here's why I know why you're good at your job. First, you interrupt people a lot, which is good. It's a good skill,
Actually,
and then there you go. Prove me right.
But here's
And the
exactly,
timing is good.
here's exactly what I do. I only interrupt people like you when you either refuse to answer the question or answer a completely different one.
Sure.
And I want to remind you of what the question was.
Fair enough. That's
Or
fair.
when you misquote me back, which you've done repeatedly through the interview, where you say, you see, Piers, you agree with me. And the viewer who's been watching will go,
No,
he didn't."
you
Cool. No
you interrupt people when you're not getting the answer from them that you want. As soon as Andrew starts going in any other direction that's not the direction that he wants, that's when the interruption begins. It's fucking insufferable, dude. I cannot stand people like this. And I don't believe that this dude is genuinely, I don't believe that he's genuinely like this in real life. I believe that this is just the fucking pandering fucking mask that he's putting on to get the views, to get the likes, to get the viewers.
The other thing you do is you try and set these traps like now. So you're saying
What's
that
the trap you think I'm setting?
you're saying that I agree with every single point of view a man has.
I literally didn't say that.
You're saying, well, you support
That's
Alex
what you're
Jones
suggesting.
Misquote me.
because you're saying you support Alex Jones, and you said you've been on his podcast and he said this. I don't know
What do you think of Alex Jones?
I don't know everything he said.
What do you think
Piers.
of him?
I think on his podcast he was cordial. I think he was professional on his podcast. I've also done podcasts with rabid leftists and people who openly hate me.
Is it wrong
I do a podcast circuit.
Okay.
So
Is it-
and I don't know everything he's ever said.
When somebody like
and I don't know what. So I don't know what you're trying to get me here
I'm
because I
about
did a
to-
podcast.
If you let me get a word in edgeways, I'll tell you.
It's a lame trick.
If you let me get a word in, I
Sure.
will tell you.
Let's go.
Alex Jones said that Sandy Hook didn't happen. It was staged by actors.
Why is he pulling this out of his
The
ass?
appalling grief of the families of those poor 20 children
Okay.
who were gunned to pieces by a lunatic with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. They were already grief-stricken beyond belief, and this guy poured petrol onto that grief quite deliberately to make a huge amount of money from his InfoWars fake news bullshit. And as a result, a lot of the families have now sued him, and they've won, and he's going to have to pay back tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in damages to these families. And quite right, it won't do anything about the pain he caused them. Some of them actually had people turn up outside their houses with guns because Alex Jones had told them that these parents were making it all up. They were all staged actors. It was all run by the government. So I simply say to you, now I've told you that, what is your view of Alex Jones?
I don't see why any of that has to do with me. It's very interesting. I've done the guy's podcast. I know him well. He was professional and courteous to me. When I meet somebody and they show me respect, I show them back. Respect. That's what I do, as I did with you.
You respect him?
If somebody shows me respect, I show them respect back.
So if Adolf Hitler showed you respect, you'd respect him back.
That's a stupid question, Piers.
It's not. It's a logical extension of your argument.
No, if in 1931 I was walking through Germany and a man come up to me and said, sorry for bumping into you, I'd say, sorry, no problem, mate. I'd show respect back.
What if-
I don't know, what are you trying to say? That
what if in
I sanction the Holocaust?
You literally just said
I don't know. I don't know why Andrew Tate simply can't just say, and why anyone can't just accept this. Yeah, Alex Jones, fucked up with the Sandy Hook shit. But besides that, I know him very well, and I like him. I think he's a very nice guy. I think he's been right with a lot of things. He made a mistake there, but I think everyone's allowed to make mistakes from time to time.
somebody respects you, you respect them back.
I say if somebody
automatically.
shows me respect, I show respect back. That's a good way to go through life.
Whoever it is.
If somebody shows me respect and is courteous to me, I'm courteous back.
How
Yes.
can you respect somebody who caused such misery and pain to Sandy
I have
Hook
no idea the specifics of the thing you're discussing. I don't understand any of it.
Well, when you
I don't
go-
know anything about it.
when you
You've
go-
told me your version of events.
When did you go on the podcast?
I was on the podcast about four times in the last 4 years. I did one
So
relatively recently.
So four times you went on Alex Jones's podcast.
Correct.
Promoting him, helping him make
I don't
money.
think it was promoting and helping him because,
Well, it's his podcast.
well, yeah, but I've been on the podcasts of people who
Oh
absolutely
my!
hate me. I've
This
been on
fucking
the
whole
podcasts
Alex
of
Jones
feminists
thing that
and all
he's trying
I know,
to
you just
he's
said
trying
the
to
same
bait
way.
him into. Well, do you accept of Alex Jones? You're a horrible human being. How could you ever dare speak politely of Alex Jones, that egregious, horrible man? I can't believe that you would ever share space with him. What a fucking shit argument, Piers. Go fucking suck your own asshole. That's fucking annoying.
I would
That's
like to
pathetic.
agree,
It's so
perhaps we can agree on
fucking.
this point.
You're
I'm not
such a
feminist. I go on
cuck
feminist
bitch.
podcasts. I do a podcast circuit. I do
You're not a
5
feminist?
I don't know.
What do you think a feminist is?
Well, let's not change subject here, Piers. Stay on the
Well, I know,
subject.
you mentioned feminism.
Completely, but you're trying to
you
trying
said-
to get away from the point, because what you did is you're trying to say, because I did a podcast, I sanction all of this person's views, and I'm saying I do 5 podcasts a
No,
week.
I'm
I do
saying
5 podcasts a week, and I don't sanction 100% the views of any other person on the planet, because I'm an individual, and he has an individual views, as
Right.
do you. So I don't know why you're trying to come at me
Would
with
you-
one of his views and pretend that's something to do
Because
with
it's
me.
a pretty big view.
No, but
and
it's a lame
huge-
trick, Piers, and you're better than this.
Not
So
a
let's
lame
move
trick.
on.
Would you,
It's
if Vladimir
lame.
Putin,
It's
if
lame,
Vladimir
and let's move
Putin
on.
had a podcast, would you go on it?
Sure.
You would? Great. Okay, let me know what you're talking about.
If Vladimir Putin had a podcast,
fine,
I'd go on
that's
it.
fine.
If Joe Biden had a podcast, I'd go on it. If a feminist has a podcast, I'll go on it. If Piers Morgan has a podcast, I'll go on it. If Alex Jones, I mean, I don't see the point you're making. There's no point here. You're digging, but there's nothing to find.
Well, I'm not. I'm taking your position that if somebody shows you respect them.
I think that.
I'm saying there are lots of people in the world I do not respect. If Vladimir Putin showed me respect, I would not respect him.
That's your opinion. But
No, it's my view. What's
okay,
your
that's
view?
your view. Well,
Your view is you would.
You're sitting here, Piers, saying that I'm on uncensored show, and in your intro you said that it's important that we don't have echo chambers and we have varying
Correct.
and that we have varying opinions.
Correct.
But then you're saying the people you don't like, you wouldn't go on their podcast.
No.
So you are a hypocrite.
No,
I will
not.
go on anybody's podcast and discuss any point.
I don't think you understand what censorship means, do you? Like a lot of words we've had problems with today.
You're just saying
What do you think censorship means?
No, but the point I'm trying to make here.
Hang on. What do you think?
Oh my
censorship
God,
Don't
bro.
hide from the fact that you're saying you will only do podcasts with people you like.
Why do you think that's censorship?
No, that's your prerogative. My prerogative is
What does it do with censorship?
I'll discuss opinions with anybody, and I've done hard left wing. Why are you not asking me about the podcasts I've done for the people who are hard liberal
By the
left
way,
wing?
I don't care whether they're left or right.
Okay.
Extremists to me are all nuts, right?
Then we agree.
Yes.
So perfect.
Good.
Next subject.
All right. Here's my next subject. It's a very
Jesus.
serious case here.
Jesus. And before we move on, sorry, Piers, but before you move on, I do find it kind of disingenuous. And I know we're on a show, and I don't have a personal problem with you, but it is kind of disingenuous to try and sit here and lump me in with some school shooting. That's nothing to do with me.
That's
nothing
Yeah,
to do.
that's
On
it's
any
such
level.
Let me
that's such a
respond.
bullshit tactic. Well, since we're here, Alex Jones said that Sandy Hook was fake. What do you think of that? You like Alex Jones, don't you? You've been on his show. You agree with him? You like what he says? You're on his side. You think that it was fake? You think it was fake? You think that those kids were fake? It was all actors? You like Alex Jones? Shut the fuck up, bro. Jesus fucking Christ, man. This fucking guy is so insufferable. Oh my God. How does he have a platform as opposed to everyone else in this fucking world?
On any level.
Let me explain. Like you just said, you've been on this podcast 4 times.
In 4 years.
Since he said the whole thing was staged.
I don't know when he
And I think the fact that a smart guy like you wants me to believe you had no idea that Alex Jones, who's been in the news now for the last 2 years for being sued by these families for the most heinous thing imaginable, of pouring petrol onto their grief by claiming that shooting was staged. The fact that you're pretending you didn't know about any of that.
It's not about pretending
and
I
you've
didn't-
been on his podcast 4
Piers,
times,
Piers.
supporting him and making him money. So damn right I'm going to call you out on
Piers,
it.
when I do a podcast, if you think I spend time analyzing the point of view of that person and everything they've ever said
You should.
for years beforehand,
It's not years, it was minutes in most cases.
years and years.
When did you last go on his When did you last go on his
Piers,
podcast?
You trying to lump me in and attack me for a person whose podcast I do having a view is absolutely childish. Because I've done a bunch of podcasts with
So you
people.
would do a podcast-
I've done a bunch of podcasts with people who are advocating for things that I do not agree with on every single level. In fact, most of my podcasts are me disagreeing with people. So it's completely crazy that you're trying to lump me in with that. That's cheap.
I think
That's cheap.
you are completely misconstruing the point of what I'm saying. I think deliberately.
No, what you're trying is a cheap trick. And I'm just making it clear
It's
to
not
the
a
audience.
cheap trick.
It's a
I'm just
cheap-
curious where your moral line is.
It's a cheap trick.
Where's your moral line?
I disagree with the points of view with the majority of the people I do podcasts with. So it's a very cheap trick you're trying here. So
When
I don't know
people
where it's gonna go.
invent vile things to make themselves rich off the back of families of little kids who've been blown to pieces with a machine gun or a semi-automatic
Oh my God,
version
he's
of a
just
machine
like
gun.
bad. He's
I
just
think that
trying
is
to just
actually a line I
milk
would-
this
I
as
wouldn't
much
cross.
as
I
he
wouldn't be
fucking
happy
can.
to go on someone's podcast when they've been responsible for doing that. It's not about political views or differences of opinion over facts. It's about somebody deliberately inventing a pack of lies to compound the grief of families. And I'm curious, you don't think you have any need to go down any kind of moral quandary about people like that before you continue to allow them to use you for their own promotion.
He didn't use me. He didn't use me for
Why
his
does he have you on the
promotion.
podcast?
Because we disagreed and discussed points like we're doing with you right now.
Did you call him out on that?
Are you using me? We didn't discuss that.
I'm not using you. I'm giving you a platform most people aren't giving you right now to show the world who you really are.
Fantastic. So neither of us are using each other. I'm here on your show. I'm providing you with content. You're giving me a platform. And nobody's using each other. It's mutual. We don't agree on a whole bunch of issues.
That's fine.
And here we are.
I think we've had a robust exchange.
Yeah, just like I've done on nearly every other podcast. And if someone were to come and say to me in the future that something heaven forbid, there's a skeleton in your closet, and someone were to come to me and say, you were on Piers Morgan's show, did you know he's X or he's done X? I would say that's absolutely nothing to do with me.
Right. But
I make the same point protecting you. I don't know what you do. I don't know your personal life.
I can guarantee one thing. I will not be inventing stories about
Oh
families.
my God.
I hope not. I hope you're a righteous person.
Let me glide past your point that you're trying to
I
make.
think it's interesting that you have no moral compulsion about going on people.
It's not about moral compulsions. It's about I don't know what you do, Piers. You could have a bunch of skeletons in your closet, my friend. I don't have a clue. I'm here on your TV show.
I'm sure we all have lots of skeletons. Let me ask you this. Interesting about the feminism thing.
Sure.
Do you identify as a feminist?
I think that women and men are fantastic. Both of us are fantastic. I think women reproduce. I think women need to be respected, protected, provided for. I think that modern feminism is kind of hard for me to even truly understand.
What do you think it means? What is feminism?
I think that the idea of feminism is that men and women are equal under the law.
And do you believe that?
Completely.
We should be treated completely equal.
Yeah, but we are equal under the law. Wouldn't you agree?
Not really. I think there are still some issues in the world where, certainly in workplace, the gender pay gap remains. They're not treated equally in most cases, women.
Well, that can be discussed, the gender pay gap. I think that's already been discussed at length. I think that there's actually...
You think women should go to work?
I think women should work completely.
You do?
Why wouldn't they?
Because in the parts of the country, of the world you were mentioning earlier, that have different views of women, they don't go to work.
In the parts of the world that person from the podcast was from, for the point I made, yeah, they didn't. But I don't live in those parts of the world. I think women should be free to work if they choose. I think it's very important that the family unit remains. I do believe that in my personal view, the most important and respectful thing a woman can do is become a mother. I think that having children is a beautiful thing. But obviously, if a woman wants to work and wants to have a career, especially now with paternity leave or maternity leave, and she can manage to do both, why wouldn't I want women to work? I don't know why anyone would ever assume I don't want women to work or think women can't work, because I said that I should keep them safe sometimes.
Good.
No, but it's interesting because you have to look at this, Piers. It's interesting how people extrapolate. Andrew said that he's responsible for a woman's safety, and he said that gives him authority to make decisions for her safety, and that's been misconstrued, and he's a bad person. He believes that women are property. But now we believe that Andrew doesn't believe in love. Andrew doesn't believe women should work. I don't know where all of that comes from.
Well, that's why I'm glad we've had a chance to discuss
Completely. I believe women are sovereign individuals, and they can make any choice they so desire. I think that it's important that we remember that a man has a duty. I think I certainly in my relationship have a financial responsibility to provide for my woman. My woman would never have to work unless she wanted to, because I'm the kind of person who works hard enough that she wouldn't have to.
Should young men, though, all aspire to be like you?
Should young men aspire to work very hard, have no criminal record, become multimillionaires, protect and provide for the women close to them, be sovereign so they can stand up and have their own points of view in face of cancellation, be able to not be mentally intimidated when they go on national TV and there's traps set up for them? Yeah, I believe that confident, strong men who stand up and protect and provide for women are a good thing for the world and a good force for the world. And I don't think that I put a magic spell on anybody. I think there's a whole bunch of men in the world who understands my value. And if men grow up to be like me, you're gonna have a whole bunch of people with no criminal record, dedicated athletes, who protect and provide for the people close to them, are fantastic for the economy. And I'm certainly not the worst influence out here, Piers. You have Lil Nas twerking on the devil on music videos, which our children are digesting. You have drill artists singing about stabbing people to death in the middle of a knife crime epidemic. You have rabid psychopaths on whether the right or the left announcing violence on the other side. You have all these insanities in the world. And because I sit here and say
You have social media platforms that are perpetuating and influencing young men and women to engage in pornography and start their own businesses and make a living off of pornography, expose themselves on every single platform, expose their bodies and their sexuality, and all of their what should be most integral to them. Expose it to the world to get as much clout and as much attention and as much money as you possibly fucking can. Go right ahead.
Yeah, perhaps. Now you've laid it out and it offended you, I understand.
I didn't say it offended me.
Okay, cool.
I just read you the things.
You read things that you said they could be offensive and some people are offended.
Well, some people definitely were offended.
Absolutely. That's fine.
And honestly, I think some of the things you said were genuinely offensive and misogynist.
Okay, so they offended you.
And
like I said earlier. So they offended you,
No,
which is fine. I said they offended you, you interrupted me, and now you're saying they offended you, which is fine. But the point I'm trying to make is this. I'm not the devil. There are certainly worse people than me, and
I don't disagree
and they exist.
with
And I'm saying that my core tenets for the people who don't understand me are self-accountability, so I'm accountable for everything I've ever said. My core tenets are responsibility, so I'm responsible for everything I've said. My core tenets are traditional masculinity to a degree, which involves protecting and providing for women. And I'll make another point. Another point here that needs to be said. The number of women who have stood up and stuck up for me is ignored. Thousands of women are making videos saying, I've met Andrew Tate, he's such a nice guy. I wish I had a man like Andrew Tate who felt responsible to protect and provide for me. You know what? I do belong to my husband, that's why I married him and I love him. We ignore the thousands of women who stood up and stood by me and said everything I said is true. And we're taking a very vocal minority who have taken the things I've said and are pretending to be absolutely and utterly devastated by them for some reason.
All right. I mean,
Let him
Sure.
fucking finish, bro. Jesus Christ.
Sure.
An inquest this week found that a 14-year-old girl, Molly Russell, died from an act of self-harm while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content. The coroner said she was exposed to material that may have influenced her in a negative way, and in addition, what started as depression had become a much more serious depressive illness, and she very sadly took her life.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Right. Her father.
It's terrible.
Her father's campaign for better protections against potentially dangerous social media algorithms. Right. It says that the particularly graphic content she saw romanticized acts of self-harm, normalized her condition, and focused on a limited and irrational view without any counterbalance of normality. First of all, what is your response to that? Nothing to do with you. Ask you what your response
that's the first thing. Yeah, it is nothing to do with me. The fact that a 14-year-old girl took her life is truly sad. The world we live in today is the world we live in. The fact that something like that happened is almost mind-blowing to me. That's truly sad. I actually feel sad inside to see something like that. This fact that they just said it's romanticizing the gory element. I don't know what she was watching, some kind of suicide videos thing. I don't know where these things are created.
Do you think the tech companies should be much tougher about stuff like this?
I don't know what kind of things she watched, obviously. I have to be a professional here. I think that the tech companies need to do their best to protect people, I guess, to a degree, but it's a slippery slope, isn't it? And then they use this slippery slope to silence some people and to
right. And I think it's a really fine line, and it's a complicated line.
It is very.
I was interested when you did an interview with the Times. Hugo Rifkin, he's a very good journalist. We did a big interview with him, and it was interesting to me his conclusion, because he kind of concluded that although he found a lot of the things he said awful and offensive, and he didn't like them, and he didn't want to be that kind of person that would say those kind of things, nor could he actually work out exactly what you'd done, which deserved mass wipeout by all the tech firms. I thought it was an interesting conclusion. I don't know the answer to that, other than the reason I mentioned the Molly Russell case, not because that has anything to do with you at all, and I reiterate that.
Thank you.
I simply ask you this. What has come clear to me in the interview is that a lot of things you say you wouldn't say now that you've said before.
But I'd say them differently, perhaps.
Yeah, right. So to me, that's an acceptance, not just that you want to get back on platforms, because maybe that was one of the reasons you were no platform, but that you've recognized and understood the potential harm to the wrong kind of impressionable mind by some of the things you've said. Would that be fair?
I think that's 80% fair. I recognize and understand that with massive fame, you have to be more careful about being misconstrued. Like I said earlier, 1% of people misunderstanding you doesn't matter with a small audience. It matters with a very large audience. With power comes responsibility. I still believe the things I say. I do not want to be a negative force for the world. I also understand that I am a man who's lived a very difficult, nuanced life, and I am capable of making nuanced points that may be misunderstood by teenagers. However, that can be said about anybody and everything. Every opinion online can be misunderstood by children. Trying to protect children from the internet is a very interesting subject in and of itself, because I would argue that 80% of the content on the internet can be negative or detrimental to a young mind that doesn't understand the world.
Yeah.
I'd argue that all of it. We just talked about music videos and dancing on the devil and all this stuff. All this stuff is dangerous.
By the way, I think you make a very good point on that.
So,
a lot of these rap stars, the lyrics, the videos, I think far exceed anything that you've been accused of doing.
Completely.
Because in a lot of cases, some of them promote non-consensual activity with people, right? And I just think that crosses a line you have, as far as I've seen, you haven't crossed that line.
No, I haven't, and this is the thing, and I've been vilified not because of the things I say, because much more extremist content already exists on the internet. I think the reason I've been attacked and vilified is because of the popularity, because I became so massively famous, not because of what I was actually saying. So as a professional, I analyze that and I understand that, okay, I'm massively famous now and certain things have been taken out of context. However, I still do believe I'm a force for good in the world, and I'm not going to sit here
and
say...
Have you changed, though?
It's not about changing.
Well, it is. We're all involved in an evolution. How old are you now?
I'm 36.
36, right? I bet you're a different person to what you were when you were 26.
Oh, that's
and
absolutely
16,
that's
right?
absolutely a
So
fact.
we all change. And Mike, you keep talking about being a good person.
Yeah.
I think if you're honest with yourself,
Yeah.
that you can see why people found a lot of the stuff you've said problematic and misogynist. And I think you've recognized you wouldn't express yourself in that way again because you've understood that it's caused a lot of harm. And that's really what I wanted to get to today, was an acknowledgement by you that these things clearly were said in the wrong way, created the wrong impression if you didn't mean them the way you intended them, and can therefore have a malevolent influence when you have a huge following.
See, that's a very fair thing to say from Piers, but throughout this whole discussion, throughout this whole interview, it's the way that he pokes and prods and tries to like bait him, the way that he's not just trying to get him the whole time to admit that, you know, that, oh, perhaps I would have delivered this a little bit differently. He's trying to get him to admit to like these egregious, like admit to so much worse. You know, he's over analyzing and over like exploiting what he said to twist it into something much more horrible than it actually is, and then get him to admit it in that sense, in those terms, and with that same bad juju on it. That's different. You can't do that because he's not gonna fucking sit there and just concede to you, trying to pull him out into the monster that the world's painting him to be. So this guy's this is a terrible fucking interview. Terrible fucking interview. This guy is just intolerable to fucking listen to and watch. For fuck's sake, I cannot imagine that. Like, here's the thing. This is gonna get tons of fucking views because it's Andrew Tate. You know, but I can't imagine that anyone behind the scenes is saying, "Great job, Piers. That was very well done." If he did this with anyone else, and it didn't get as many views as it did because it's Andrew Tate, whoever's behind the scenes in charge of this fucking setup would absolutely be like, what the fuck was that shit? That was terrible. That was garbage. No one's gonna want to listen to this. Because he just fucking just blasted through everything, and there wasn't even a fucking interview. It's terrible fucking content.
Yeah, when you have a huge following, you certainly have to be a lot more careful about how you get certain points across. That's absolutely a fact.
Andrew, I appreciate you coming all the way from Romania.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting conversation, and I thank you for having it.
Cheers, Frank.
Well, that's it from me. Whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored. Good night.
So let's go to the comments. So, I mean, listen. Obviously, there's no fucking clinical diagnosis with all these people in the fucking comments, but just sit here and think to yourself. Do you really think that all these comments are just children who are just so enthralled with Andrew Tate and who he is that they're taking all that time out to just type in and make these bullshit fucking scenarios up just to paint him in a better light? It's very unlikely to me. As a man who had clinical depression, I say Andrew Tate's advice is far more helpful than any other medication I was prescribed. This is not an interview. This is an interrogation. Huge respect to Andrew Tate. Blah, blah, blah. As someone who suffered from depression, I believe that Tate did nothing but good for me. In 2019, I started getting really sad thoughts. In 2020, during lockdown, I was left alone with those thoughts, and it manifested. I used to believe that there was something seriously wrong with me. At one point, I was suicidal. I didn't mean to explain my whole life story, but yikes, give Andrew a break. Tate is right. Depression is nothing but a mindset, not an illness. And suggesting that is not bad. Even if he's wrong, that's not bad. It's not doing harm. If anything, it will only save some people. It's not going to make others worse. Can we just give props to Mr. Tate for agreeing to this? Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Piers. You just made me respect Andrew even more. You can't interrupt as much as you want to make it seem like you look smart or something. Now there's so many fucking comments, diluting them. His entire audience, this man is literally telling his entire audience that depression is 100% real, and there's no denying it. Obviously, the feeling of depression is real. We all get it. Regardless if that's accurate, Tate is encouraging the audience to have a mindset where depression doesn't exist. No one wants to hear that clinical depression is a disease. I know, encouraging people that, like, if they get depressed, that well, go to the doctor because you might be clinically depressed and you might be fucked. There may be no escaping this. That does fucking harm. Absolutely disgusting how Piers brings up the article about the 14-year-old girl killing herself. Yeah, why even bring that into the conversation? That's so fucking, like, mischievous. Like, why even do that? You're trying to, like, evoke something out of the conversation, trying to, like, tug on the heartstrings of people to get them to feel something negative, and then like subconsciously associate it with fucking Tate. I totally respect Tate after this. Wow, he's brilliant. Okay, I think Piers learned a lot from this interview. No, he definitely did not. Andrew Tate has helped a lot of my friends overcome depression because of Andrew Tate. And again, I don't think that it's not Tate, right? It's what he's suggesting. He's not the only one to suggest it. He's just very polarizing right now, and so his voice carries weight for a lot of people. All right, people like to hear it come from him. It resonates for whatever reason, right? It's not Tate himself that's saving people. It's that mindset, if you will. It's the mindset that him and other people try to share, try to spread. I don't think Andrew Tate's a divine individual, but I think the information, I think the discussions he's choosing to have are very important. Tate is the reason I have completely changed as a man. I am respected by both genders. I look physically stronger and am now a man who inspires others. Thank you so much, Andrew Tate. Not everyone will understand your message, but I can assure you, I definitely, when I first went through here, the comments weren't so diluted, but there was just comment after comment of people talking about the depression topic. Anyways. Horrible fucking interview, but if it's Tate, I'm watching. This episode of Good Soup is brought to you by Mudwater. Go to mudwater.com, enter coupon code PICKLEFUCKER. Get 15% off of nothing. I'm not sponsored by Mudwater. The universe loves you, bitches.